So, last night I watched the Silent Hill film. And this movie, it's slightly over 2 hours. My opinion on this movie is that I think it's one of those movies that I think is too long. That's my first critique. I've got many critiques, but overall, a lot of people shit on this movie. Now, shitting on the sequel, I remember I've only seen the sequel once, but I remember the sequel not being great at all. But anyway, I don't want to start this review being negative. I love this movie. Now, conveniently, I just had the idea of watching the movie while I was playing the game. I haven't seen this movie in a long time, so normally I don't do that. But playing the original Silent Hill and then watching the movie right afterward, I started watching it right away, made some popcorn, and it was fun. Like, I might make this a tradition. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I have a lot to say about the Silent Hill movie. First of all, it's just great. The first hour, 20 minutes is, in my opinion, it's fucking perfect. Now, again, a lot of people have a lot of criticisms. I agree with a lot of them. I disagree with a lot of them. One of the major parts of the Silent Hill movie is that the characters are loosely based on the video game characters. But they're very different, but they're loosely based on, but with unique personalities. In the video game, of course, you play as Harry Mason in the video game, which is the single father. In the movie, there's two parents, and the mother goes to Silent Hill. So again, slightly different, gender swapping, whatever. A lot of the characters have the same names, but not all of them do. But anyway, the atmosphere of this movie, I think... Now again, I would distinctly cut this movie into two parts. As far as my review here, I think everything before the church segment, I think is just amazing. I personally think that every scene before the church, my opinion, it's the perfect video game movie adaptation. I just think it's wonderful. The church segment up until the end, I think there's a lot more to critique there. I feel like the movie would have been better if they had cut more out of it. I feel like some of the things were just a little weird. But I'll get into that in a moment here. But I just gotta say, the whole beginning, before they go to Silent Hill, the child actor, not great. The really bad opening scene where she's screaming, Silent Hill, it's bad. But, it's only one moment, and, my opinion, it's fine. So anyway, I just love the scene where the main character wakes up in Silent Hill. I thought that the vibe, the atmosphere, the way that they had the fog, the ash and everything falling from the sky, it very, very, very similarly matched both Silent Hill, and I have Silent Hill 2 right here, but I'm using it as my camera stand. The thing about this movie is that it more follows the plot of Silent Hill, but it has a lot of areas and themes that are references to Silent Hill 2. The music, in my opinion, the Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, 4 soundtrack, it's some of the best video game soundtracks of all time. All of them are amazing. And the thing I love about this movie is they combine Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 songs. They'll smoothly transition to a Silent Hill 2 song from a Silent Hill 1 song, and then go to a Silent Hill 3 song, and then some of them are kind of merged together in remixes. I thought the music in this movie was excellent, because that's one of the things about video games. Video games, more than movies historically, video games have excellent soundtracks. And this goes back to early video games, where the graphics were not that great. And so, one of the best ways to make the game memorable is by having some kick-ass fucking music. Look at Mega Man, for example, as a video game that's pretty old now, that has just such good music that the game could be 10 times worse and it would still be worth playing, right? So, and the Silent Hill games are no exception, right? A lot of the atmosphere in the video games is from the music. And so I think that the way that this movie utilized the soundtracks from the first 3 Silent Hill movies or games I think was tremendous. I think it was a great job. They did such a good job. Like using the Silent Hill 1 music when they're in the Silent Hill 1 kind of references, using the Silent Hill 2 music when areas are referencing Silent Hill 2. I just thought it was great. I thought that the way, like the first, like everything before the church, right? I just thought it was amazing. Every time that the other world would come, like, and the siren would happen, and then like the monsters would disintegrate. You know, one of the complaints that I've seen about this movie is that the CGI looks bad. It is like a 2006 movie, so it's in that weird kind of uncanny era. But for me, like the CG just looks like the video game. It looks like a little bit better versions of the video game. And to me, that's fine. I don't like, if this movie were to have been remade and the CG looked better, okay. But I don't think the quality of the CG really affects the movie because it's a video game movie. You know what I mean? It's a video game movie. So, you know, to me, some of the shit looking like a video game, that's not a problem for me at all. Some of my favorite scenes are, I think, the scene with the bathroom creature, where the main character is in a bathroom, locks herself in a bathroom to protect herself, and then the other world strikes, and she found this, like, weird corpse, right? And then during the other world, like, the corpse becomes alive. Oh, my God. And that thing, that was probably the scariest part of the movie. I just think that the way that this movie handled the other world, I think it was perfect. I think the way it handled, like, the fog overworld, I think it was perfect. They really captured the atmosphere brilliantly. Now, the parts where this movie starts to struggle is the plot, right? Because they're really trying to merge the plot of 1 and expand upon some of the elements of Silent Hill 1 that isn't present in the game. And they have like a couple areas, like a couple like plot points from Silent Hill 2. Or mostly it's just kind of references. The plot is mostly centered around Silent Hill 1 based off of that. But there's some like Silent Hill 2 kind of references. And now again, this movie also has the whole B plot of what the father is doing, trying to track down the wife and child. Personally, now again, the father is the main character in the sequel. The way I see it, the whole side plot of the father is really only in existence to set up the sequel. That added really nothing to the movie. Like, so would I have I cut that part if I were the director, or would I have not even made that part? Maybe. But like, if you're trying to set up a sequel, okay. But the sequel to this movie is not great. Maybe I'll rewatch it. It's not on any of the services I have. But the B plot where the father's like breaking and entering into like the police records and like finds some shit, it's wholly unnecessary. It's wholly unnecessary. It adds nothing to the story. So would I have cut it? Maybe not. Maybe have a little bit there to show that he's upset or whatever. But I feel like most of that side story was just kind of, they didn't really do much with it. But again, it does set up the sequel. So, you know, it establishes the character and how he kind of acts and behaves for the sequel. So, you know what? I understand why it was added into the movie. If I were to recut this film, I would probably just get rid of those parts. That's my opinion, though. But anyway, now, again, everything I've said about this, for the most part, has been before the church section. So, before the church section. Now, the church section is a turning point. Now, I'm not saying everything about the movie is bad from that point, but it gets a lot worse, and it gets a lot worse really quickly. So, the cop, Sybil, and the main character go to a church, right? The church is protected. Their faith or whatever protects them when the otherworld nightmares happen. And so they congregate in the church, but the church is also made up of crazy people. So it's really kind of, it's accurate to like how religious mobs work, right? And the crazy people, of course, then we find out that they had burned down, the child at the beginning, who is like a clone or like a spirit clone of their adopted child. So like the parents, their child is an adopted child who's like a spirit clone of the child that they burned in Silent Hill. And they adopted her, right? And that's why she wants to go back to Silent Hill. But she doesn't know why, because she's like a spirit clone or whatever. So anyway, they burn the kid because, it's very similar to like Ring. A crazy mob just thinks that this person's crazy. And then, so, in this case, they're correct. But that doesn't make the actions, acceptable. But anyway, So they burn down the kid, kill the kid, and that's what sets up the whole Silent Hill thing, because the kid is like an otherworldly creature, and like every time the kid is having like a nightmare, that's what turns Silent Hill into the other world, right? That's established a little bit in the game, but they kind of run with that in the movie. The characters in the church, like the leader of the church, I think all the characters of the church I think they're just bad. I really just think they're horrible. I think Dahlia, and how she works in the movie, how she shows up before the church segments, I think that's all great. I think that's a really good character. They do a good job. But all the church characters, like the redhead who gets her skin taken off by Pyramid Head, I just think that the characters there are bad. I just think that they don't really add much. One of the things I like about this movie is how they do a lot of landmark scenes from the video games, and they kind of just, there's so many of them. Like, again, I've mentioned Silent Hill 1 and 2, right? There's so many references to the games, like when you're jumping from the window to the next window of the apartment buildings that are built right next to each other. That's, like a lot of things that you remember from the games are present for a couple seconds in the movie, and I think that that's great. But once you hit the church segment, it just like it slows down the pace, right? So anyway, so the church lady tells the main character that the root of all evil is in the basement to this place. So she goes to the basement. Then she finds the spirit of Alessa, who is like, the clone of the kid who's named Sharon in this movie instead of Cheryl. And then there's the weird segment where like Alessa's like beaming an info dump directly into the bitch's brain. Right? And we're getting like, it's like a 5-minute sequence of like an old film reel with the narrator by the child actor. I thought that part was wholly unnecessary. Now, again, I understand if you've never played the game, right? Like, because a lot of the information that's dumped there is stuff from the game that I guess they just couldn't figure out how to put it into the movie in a better way. That part, wholly unnecessary. My opinion, it's a giant like pacing problem, because the pacing of the movie up until that point is pretty good, and then that part just kind of like, it just drags on way too long. But anyway, so Alessa tells the story about how she was basically burned alive for no reason, and how she gets revenge and whatever. So she hugs the main character and absorbs her essence into the main character. The main character goes back to the church, finds out that they burned Sybil. That scene where they burn Sybil alive and you actually see the blisters form on her, that was a great scene, I just want to say. So again, post-church, it's not all bad. There's some real good stuff in there. The scene where they try to kill the main character, and then like the spirit of Alessa starts fucking them up with like the giant tentacles, that's great. I loved that. It was all really good. But I just think, again, like the church people, I don't know, the characters weren't good enough. If the characters were better written, I would have liked the scenes a lot more, but I just feel like they were like so easily perceived as bad guys right away from the beginning. And there's not enough like moral grayness. Like they're just bad guys. And then I feel like that scene would have been a lot better. If like they would spend more time maybe making the church seem a little gray, and then like they just turn out to be gray. I don't know. But anyway, so then the church people are dead, and the lady and the child go back into the real world. They exit Silent Hill. But this is where the movie gets a little weird. It's because they exit Silent Hill, the geographical location, right? But like they're still in the fog world, and it's like a ghost town. So they go back home, and like it juxtaposes like the dad crying on the couch with them crying, with them just chilling in the living room, because like they're in like the Silent Hill fog world, but they're at home, but like, they're not in the same realm or whatever. I thought that was a good ending. It sets up a sequel. Now again, I don't have access to the sequel. I'll review it at some point. But again, I really enjoyed this movie. I just have to say that like a lot of people shit on this movie, and I feel like the bad parts are worthy of criticism. But this film does a lot right. It gets a lot right. There's a lot of really good stuff in this film. Especially if you've played Silent Hill 1 and 2. There's so many like just references to the games that are really well done. Enemies that are like from the games but slightly modified. Like again, the moments where they're at like the fence area and they see like the straitjacket guy. And then like, the moments where like, again, the recreation of the intro of Silent Hill 1, when she's first in the overworld and then starts getting attacked by the ghost children. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's just really, really well done, I have to say. Like, the atmosphere of Silent Hill, flawless. The way that they did the Otherworld, I loved it all. My main criticism is I think the pacing just hits a rock. It hits like, it crashes like 80 miles per hour into like a fucking steel like building. You know, it just like hits an abrupt halt when you hit the church segment. I just feel like it if you would cut down like 15 minutes from that, I feel like this movie would be remembered a lot better. But again, Silent Hill, it's a great video game movie, especially for 2006. It's a great video game movie. It might be one of the best video game movies of this era. In my opinion, I think it's great. Now, again, there's a lot of problems with it, but overall, I really enjoyed this movie. And especially the same day after playing the first game, I thought it was very fun, very enjoyable. And I'd recommend this to anybody that likes the video game franchise. Just, understand that, like, once you get to the church part, it gets worse, right? The strong points of this film, it ends on a low note, right? So a lot of people, like, when they're done watching the movie, they'll be like, huh? It's better to end on a high note. But my opinion, the first half of this movie really is just genuinely so good that, like, I really do think that this movie, even though it does end in a little bit of a sour place, I think this movie should not be shit on historically, because the first half of it really is well done. But there you go. That's the Spook6ular segment for today. And there you go. That's all I got. There's a Max dog right here. Hi, Max. You're a dog.